In this episode of Homemaker Living, we're going to take a look at how my berries have progressed since my last video. In an earlier video, I showed you how I transplanted the runner-daughter plants from these mother plants into this bed. This bed was empty. I had strawberries, a different variety in them last year that I did not like, so I took them out. And these were new to me last year, this variety. This is Albion, A-L-B-I-O-N. And they did so well, and I was so impressed with them and their berries that I wanted to go ahead and fill this bed. So I let the runners go last year. I ended up having a total of 54 runners in this bed. That allowed me then to fill this bed. I put 20, I think it was 26 plants in here. And really, you can't tell the difference between them. These daughters to these mothers, they look nearly the same size and are producing as much fruit as they are. So it's really quite amazing that the first year of these plants do so well. In that previous video, I also mentioned that I was going to try a different method this year of planting up those daughters on those runners, so I didn't have them embedded into the actual raised bed soil, that they'd be in their own little cups, so that I could just cut them off the mother plant and I wouldn't have to transplant them. And so what I did was earlier in the year, or earlier in the season, I went ahead and did that. I had a number of these put off runners like crazy. Usually they'll have a season of berries, then some runners, and then berries again. And these strawberries do both in conjunction, a ton of berries and a ton of runners. So I went ahead and took the opportunity to go ahead and pot them up inside the bed, inside these cups, to eliminate that one step of having to take them out and put them in the cups. So as you can see, they're doing really well. I have 7 of them in here currently that are very well rooted and ready to go into a bed. But for the most part, you know, you can get your own free strawberry plants if you just put a little effort into it. So let me give you a little close-up of what the beds look like in the plants. So you can see this is a plant from this year I transplanted, so it's moderate size, but then this one here is enormous, and it's a plant from last year, and look how big that is. And of course you can see all the strawberry blooms that it has on it. I put this netting on here, this bird netting with the hoops to keep the birds out, because I have robins that nest in these blue spruce trees. I have 3 of them here in the back. And then they come down and they eat all my strawberries. And then they teach their little fledglings to eat them too. And right now he's up there scolding me because probably I'm too close to his nest. Here is the little cup method that I'm using. So here is the runner that comes off of this plant here. And then when it starts forming that strawberry plant, I go ahead and put it in this cup of soil with a little landscape staple to hold it in upright. And if you keep this water moist, if you keep the soil moist, it should root a lot faster. So as you can see, these plants are, my husband put a little foil on it to alert the birds there's something there. No birds have gotten stuck in the netting, so we're good. As you can see, the plants look really good and healthy. You can see which ones I transplanted. These are from this year, new ones. They're quite small. And then again, this bed is all brand new, and they're not quite as big as that one I just showed you, but some of them are good size, and you know, they make some really nice strawberries. I'm definitely not disappointed at all. I'm going to go ahead and show you a little clip of me harvesting some berries this morning, as well as how I process them every other day when I bring them in the house, and then we'll come back here. These are the strawberries that I harvested earlier today. I get about this amount of strawberries every 2 days. After harvesting the strawberries, I give them a quick wash. So now we're going to drain them and give them a good rinse. Okay, then I'll transfer them to a colander. Give them another nice little shower. And the trick is to let them dry as much as you can get them dry before putting them in the fridge, which I use mason jars with a nice tight seal. Okay, so let's get them on the towel. All right. Just kind of get them out, and I just lay them out, give them some good air. Yeah, and so when these are completely dry, I'll jar them up. Here they are all jarred up, ready to go in the fridge for 2 days. And then when I get the next harvest, I'll process these for the freezer and then process those for fresh eating. Here's a batch of strawberries that I already processed in the freezer. So as that new batch comes in from the garden, I'll go ahead and make sure that I process, as I mentioned, everything that's in the fridge already. And I simply just core the green off, slice them in half, make sure that core is taken off, take off anything that looks questionable. I go ahead and bring them in from the freezer. I use a Seal Meal Food Saver process and get a bag ready, and then I just measure out however much I want to process in each bag. Sometimes I'll use a big bag if I know I'm going to use it for jam, and I'll do 6 to 8 cups. Since I don't always know that I'm going to be making jam with them, I will measure them out and put them in sometimes 2, 3, or 4 cup bags, and then just pull out what I need for either smoothies or I'm going to make jam or a pie. Then I've already got it measured out. So that's 2 cups, and I feel like I could get more in there. I made the bag kind of big. So I'm going to do 3 cups in this bag. It's nice having everything already measured out. And I kind of already know how much I need of whole berries when I make jam. So that's 3 cups already marked. And then I'll go ahead and seal them. They should stay nice and sealed and fresh till I want to use them. I will mark in the corner how many cups it is. So I'm ready to go. Now that we're back from the kitchen, let's go ahead and take a peek at the raspberries and see how they're growing in that new trellis system. So there isn't a whole lot to see here in the raspberry trellis area, other than the fact that this trellis system that we put in, I did a previous video on that. We didn't have the greatest robust system holding these up last year, and so we wanted to revamp it. We had the T-post in, but we didn't have some really strong gauge wire in here. So we did a video on prepping these beds for growing, and as well as to capture these as they grow up. And as you can see, they're doing really well. They are growing upright through that grid system. This last plant here on the end is a different variety than the other 5 plants we put in. This one is a 2-year cane variety, where the primal canes grow 1 year. So this year, these new shoots have come up, and these will bear fruit next year. And then these shoots that are in here that have the berries on it were stalks that came up last year, did not produce berries, and then we left them, don't cut them out, and then they produce berries this year. We've had some really high heat temps this year for the last 3 weeks. We've been in the high 90s and the hundreds, and it really has stunted the berries from, I don't want to say ripening, but ripening good. They are really kind of dry and not as plump and juicy as they are. So now our temps have come down. So hopefully the berries that are on here on this one particular plant will plump up and be a little bit more juicy than the ones we've already harvested. So let me take you to look at this more close up. As you'll see when we go through it, as the canes grew up, I made sure we have 4 wire runs in here. Yeah, 4. And as they grow up, I would just make sure to push them in and push them back behind the wire so that they weren't all falling out. And for the most part, that worked. I do have some on the ends that aren't inside, and I'll just have to deal with those as we go on through the season. The one thing I probably would do a little different is maybe thin them out, because like I said, I put in 5 plants originally and they sent up so many shoots. It's so thick in there. I just don't know how well they'll do with sunlight and airflow and ripening. So we will see this year to see how that goes. And if it doesn't go as expected, then next year when the shoots come up, I'll probably thin them out early on. But for the most part, the method of this trellising system and our plan is working to keep them all in there. But let me give you a closer up look to see how that turned out. So as you can see, I have a wall of raspberries here. So it looks like a big hedge. So here are the wires that we have wrapped around the T-posts that run on the outside and the inside. Again, if you hadn't seen that video, you can go back and take a peek at that and see how we did that. And here's a good example of this one is outside of the wire. And so typically I take usually 2 hands so I don't break anything. Let's see if I can do this. I usually just push him underneath and then bring him around, and then he's on the right side now. Let's see, here's another little guy. Push him in. Like I said, I do this every, I don't know, a couple times a week to see about getting any that are out there. Ooh, look at this guy. First one I've seen producing some flowers, some blossoms. So these are not too far off of getting some raspberries. That's really good. And this is the back side of it. Looks just like the front side. Just a big hedge and wall of raspberries. This guy needs to go in. For the most part, they're all in. But again, I have this one different variety on the end here that's producing pretty good. See all these berries. What looks like one I could maybe harvest. At any rate, they are starting to look like normal berries should instead of being so dry. All right, let's maybe take a peek at my other raspberry bed. And I did not feature this bed on a previous video other than showing a picture of it as it was just starting to leaf out. But since then, it's sent up a ton of shoots. It's really filled in. It's a bush variety. It's called Shortcake, raspberry shortcake. And they're just not vining. They're shrubs. These are still having the same issue as the other raspberries with the heat. They are producing berries, but then they stopped when the temperatures got that hot, and they're just kind of hanging out ready, I guess, for some cooler temps. Trying to water the heck out of them so that they have the moisture they need. But it's kind of a sad year for the raspberries right now with all this unprecedented heat that we've had this early in the season. And lastly, let's look at my blackberry trellis. So I didn't do a video on it this year, but last year I did do a video on putting up these cattle panels for my trellising system with the T-posts. But what we're looking at right now is the blackberry. This blackberry bush and this blackberry bush are the same variety. We planted them 2 years ago. And this one, all of the canes that I had on it that overwintered for fruit this year, in that freeze that was like 24 degrees, they all died. So I don't get, sadly, any fruit from this blackberry bush this year. And this one's canes all died as well. So if these don't come through this winter coming up, and then in next spring, these are not doing well in producing, I'm going to take these out and put new plants in. But I'm going to give them this year to see how they do. This one, again, everything died, and when it came back, it spread out. So I have some new canes here, here, and way over here. So I have to figure out how to get them up on the trellis. So the method I use for doing my bramble canes is 4 to 5 canes per planting site. I let them grow up to the top of the trellis. and then head them off. And then these should then grow lateral branches at a couple of different budding sites. And that's where you get your most fruit from, is your lateral branches. So you can get fruit from these canes. You'll get some. I've had that in the past. I just didn't get a robust, real vigorous season. But growing them with the lateral branches, you should get so much more fruit. So that's the method that I'm doing again this year. And these grew so early that I'm hoping that heading them off this year, I should have much more lateral growth this year than last year. I can't remember the variety of these. I do want to say it's Columbia something, these two. And then the other blackberry that I know that I purchased that's blackberry is this third one. And I got that from a little local farm stand. And I have one cane that is a primal cane from the year before that is flowering this year and fruiting, so that's a flower cane. And then I have two canes that have come up on it that are primal canes this year, and they'll be flower canes and produce berries next year. So that kind of rounds out the blackberries that I know what they are. So let's move down to the next section. We'll take a peek at those. So on this last part of the trellising system, I have what I refer to sometimes as my mystery berries. I'm not sure exactly the variety that they are. They were here on the property when we moved in. They were in the front yard. And we went ahead, since I knew I was going to be doing this trellising system, we transplanted them back here. And they're very similar to a blackberry. I kind of want to lean towards a blackberry. At first I thought maybe they were boysenberry, but I don't believe the leaf pattern looks the same as a boysenberry. I've grown them in the past. My sister has them, and they're definitely not a leaf pattern of the boysenberry. But after doing some Google image searching, I'm now thinking they are Olallie blackberries, and they are a really tasty berry. They are not super seedy. They're very plump, very juicy, sweet, and they almost like melt in your mouth. And so I'm really pleased with them. Of course, I don't know how any of those taste because I haven't got berries yet, but I do have very familiar with wild blackberries, and they don't compare. These are much better. So I'm really, really pleased with these. So same thing, we planted them, 3 of them here on the trellising system, and same method, try to have 4 or 5 canes per plant. They grow up. You'll see that these 2 haven't quite reached the top yet, so I haven't topped them off. This one I could probably top off soon, but I've tipped off these, and then all of these down the line. So again, I have 3 planting sites, anywhere 4 to 5 canes in each one, and they hopefully will send out all of those laterals, and next year I'll get quite a bit more fruit. So close up here, you can see that I did have, like I said, some flower canes this year from it. I mean, look how big these blackberries are. They're like ready every day. I try to pick every other day, but they ripen very quickly. Another one up here. Here's another one. So you see down here I have, that has 5 canes. And just again, I attach them with some orchid clips, and then sometimes some of the green tape. Get them to the top and clip them off. There's another berry. This plant here, I was so surprised. I spent about 3 hours last week getting these all trimmed up and tied up. This one had 13 new canes coming off of it. So that was quite interesting, trying to figure out which ones I wanted to keep. So what I did was I kept all the ones that are the thickest, fattest canes, because those should produce the healthiest laterals and fruit. And trimmed out the rest and trying to propagate those. I'll show that here in a moment. But yeah, so there's a flower cane going up with some berries on it. So now let's take a look at my propagation methods. Here are the 2 more natural methods for the brambles propagating. So if you take a cane, this one is still attached, as you can see, down at the base at the crown. And as it grows up, you can go ahead and put it in a container of soil. And I think I put a landscape staple in here. You can cover it with soil as well. And the idea is that it will root from where these leaf nodes are, And then after it roots, you can see it still has the tip on it. You can cut it off of this mother cane. And I can leave that cane here on the bush if I wanted to, but I have too many canes as it is. And then it'll be rooted. You know, you check to make sure it's rooted before you cut it off. And then when it's rooted, then you have a new plant that way. And the other method, again, another cane off the main crown, and they will naturally arc over, touch the ground, and when they touch the ground, those tips, they will root in as well. So in this case, when this one, since I put the tip way down in the soil, when this one roots in hopefully 3 to 4 weeks, I can go ahead and cut it off here, and it will be its now own plant, and then I'll get rid of the rest of this cane. That is another way to get more plants off of your already established plant. Now I have seen one person that actually did what they call the serpentine method this way, whereas they put a pot under some leaf nodes here, sunk them in the soil, and then as the tip grew out, they would do another pot, and as the tip continued to grow, they would do another pot. And I think he had like 5 under his. I certainly don't need 5 plants. I wouldn't mind having 2 or 3 more that I can use to maybe replace those guys down there that may not do very well this next season. So if these propagation methods work, then I'll have this plant here, that'll be 1, and then this plant will be 2, and then this one that I plan to transplant out of this soil here will be 3, and that gives me enough to transplant into these 3 spots if I needed. I don't think I'm going to need to take that guy out, but this guy and this guy maybe, and then I have a 3rd one I could pop in at the end. And if I don't need them, then I can always just give them to a friend or something. Well, that'll wrap up this berry update today. I'm super pleased with the way the strawberries are producing and how well the raspberries are growing. I'm sure they're going to put on quite a bit of berry production as well. And the blackberries, you know, I'm hoping that the pruning that I'm doing this year and the lateral growth will make it through this winter, and I'll have a bumper crop next year. If you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel to continue following me on my garden journey. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.